Hello and welcome to Seattle City Makers. I'm your host, Jon Scholes. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to our latest episode where I sit down with David Butler, who is the owner and operator of Caviste, a terrific wine bar located on 7th Avenue in downtown Seattle between Virginia and Stewart. David and his team just run an incredible operation there. Great French wine, great small plates, open 6 days a week till midnight, serving food till midnight. One of my favorite spots in the neighborhood here, as our office is just up the street, and so is where I live. So I get in there often, as do many others. It's a bustling, lively wine bar David and his team have just created and reopened in May of 2021, a tremendous spot in downtown Seattle. And before opening Le Caviste originally in 2013, David cut his teeth in a number of Seattle's great French establishments, including La Gourmande and Le Pichet. And David and I discussed the origin story of Le Caviste, his vision and inspiration for the wine bar, his life and business since they reopened in May of 2021. We talk about what it means to be a regular, where he is eating and drinking when he ditches the apron at Le Caviste and is out and about in other establishments in the city. David's first job, and of course, his perfect Saturday in Seattle, a standard question here on the podcast. Hope you enjoy my conversation with David Butler, the owner and operator of Le Caviste. Thanks for making time for this.
Sure.
It's I didn't realize when we booked this that it's your 10-year anniversary.
Yeah, coming up
Happy
on
birthday,
10.
happy anniversary.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Hard to believe. I remember when I signed that lease 10 years ago, my blood ran cold. I couldn't believe I was going to make a 10-year commitment to anything, and boom, presto, it's over.
And you anticipated a pandemic in those 10 years,
I
right?
did not.
No.
I did not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we managed to weather that okay too, so.
So for those who don't know, and for those that spend a lot of time here like me and don't know the full story, what's the origin story of the how and why Le Caviste came to be?
Well, I've been working in French restaurants for the vast majority of my adult life and traveling to France all the time and really fell in love with the wine bars, particularly in Paris, because they give a broader sort of representation of all the wines of France. When you're out in the countryside in regional wine bars, they tend to really focus on regional product. But in Paris, they're kind of like France, you know. And I really love those places. And let me get that.
Don't have hamburgers.
Okay. Yeah, you're all right.
Was that someone who is not on the internet?
I don't know if it says anything on the internet about us being. Oh,
But
sorry.
you don't have hamburgers.
We don't have hamburgers.
Let it be known you do not have hamburgers.
Yeah. Oh, people call sometimes and ask about whether or not kids can come in here, and they can. I have a restaurant license, not a tavern license, so.
This I did not know.
So children are allowed, but we don't do anything special for
You're not
children.
going to make them pizza.
I don't have soda pop. I don't have pizza fixins or butter noodles or a little dinosaur-shaped menu. Nothing like that. That doesn't happen here. But there are a bunch of kids in town, most notably children of like some of my wine reps and stuff, who come in here and they'll have steak tartare and they'll eat charcuterie and cheese, and they totally dig it and totally get it.
Oh,
So.
I'm bringing Parker by. I had no
there you
idea.
go.
I should have
Oh,
known
yeah.
this. So back to the origin story.
Okay, back
after
to
you
the
had
origin story. So
take that phone call.
Right. So I was thinking about it for a while, and back in 2008, I'll try and make this brief and at least somewhat interesting. Back in 2008, I was working at Le Gourmande as his somm, and I was thinking about maybe leaving town. I had a big relationship that had ended, and I was thinking about sitting for the somm test. Not something I ever really wanted to do, but I thought might come in handy if I was going to leave town. At my age, I was going to come up on 50, and I thought, maybe that'll help me work into my later years. Yeah. And I was working a big table that night, tasting menus and wine flights. And the head of the table, who was a big personality kind of fella, found out from one of the other waiters that I had just come home a couple days earlier from Paris. So he pulls me aside and he says, "You must love it when you're in France and you get to watch the other somms work." Right? No. And no, I said, no, I don't. I like putting on cufflinks and shooting out the lights as much as the next guy, but I don't look across the room at the Somme at L'Ambroisie or L'Arpège or Epicure and think, oh, I want to be that guy. I want that guy's life. But then I told the table, I said, conversely, when I'm in Paris and I'm in the wine bars of Paris, these dirty old joints where everything's on a chalkboard and there's some grumpy old dude stomping around who's got a good palate, but no pin, no certificate. Every time I'm in one of those places, I look at that guy and I say, oh man, I would trade lives
to run that.
I'd Freaky Friday with that guy right now. He could, I'll take this bar over. He'd come to Seattle, have my girlfriend in my apartment, the whole thing. I'll just change jobs. And everybody had a good laugh, but I walked away from the table hearing the kind of the chime of truth and realized that I didn't want the certificate. What I wanted was that other thing. And so maybe what I should do is take all my energies and money that I would have put toward getting a certification that I didn't want and write a business plan, raise money, open that bar, be that grumpy old dude. Right. And there was a little bit of a delay. This is kind of the ironic footnote to this story is I had my business plans all spiral bound in a bag from Kinko's, all tricked out, ready to hand them off to anybody whoever said they would want to help me if I tried to do something. Walked into Le Gourmand kitchen with them in a bag, and Bruce Naftali, the chef at the time, very talented man, says to me, "Did you hear about Lehman Brothers?" Boom. That was the night of the big economic downturn that just crushed everything. Everybody who had money ran into the tall corn and disappeared. I was left holding my business plan with nobody who wanted to give any money away to anybody. So, the advice of Jim Droman, the old chef at Pichet, a good friend of mine, he said, just hold on to it. Everybody's going to get well, and eventually they will. And when they do, you dust them off and hand them out. And I did that in 2012, and we opened Caviste in 2013.
What'd you do in between? Were you you were at Le Pichet for a bit?
I stayed at Le Gourmand until he closed in 2012. I worked as his sommelier for the end of his run. And then I went back a couple nights a week at Pichet while I put together the money and did the build out here.
So how much of the original plan and vision matches what you're delivering today?
It's exactly what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I make the joke all the time that if I have a superpower, it's my intransigence. Right. It's how stubborn I am about stuff. And
you're particular.
Yeah, I'm really particular. I knew what I wanted it to be, and I knew how to make it correct. And so I just wasn't going to go off message.
You thought you wanted and what you knew you wanted and liked, or were you trying to appeal to what you think others?
What I wanted.
Were you building a place you wanted to drink and hang out at? I mean,
that too, because. But I love those places, right? So it was my best attempt to recreate those experiences that I loved.
And that you saw other people loving them.
Yeah, but I wasn't going to throw people a lifeline, like make them a pizza or do this or do that. I was going to do it as authentically as possible and let the chips fall where they may. I've been very lucky, that it's worked out so well because I didn't hedge my bets and try and make it more populist in its approach. I just
are some of the things you do in here your own particular nature? Like you don't have side plates, and I watch people ask you for side plates, and you're sort of like, screw you, we don't have them. Eat off.
Oh, we never say that.
Close to it, right?
Yeah, you really gotta get up on your hind legs with me before you get that kind of talk. But no, most of my favorite wine bars in Paris, you don't get side plates. You'd never get a side plate. If you're at the Baron Rouge over in the 12th, one of my favorite places in all of Paris, you don't even get your own silverware. You get a big charcuterie board. There's one knife tucked under a piece of pâté for no matter how many people are sitting at that table, right? It goes against the convivial nature of the wine bar, at least as France does it, to do that. Everybody eats off the same plate together. The ethos in the wine bar is more like a picnic, less like a restaurant. And doing a little bit of education about that for people in Seattle I think is good, because then if they do go to France, they won't be so nonplussed, because somebody else who's maybe not as nice as me will tell them they can't have a side plate either, because it's just not how it's done.
And you're not an ass about it. You're pretty nice about it.
No, I just say, and in fact, I try to let them know that this is how it goes. And every now and again, someone pushes or digs in their heels real hard, and then they find out that my heels go deeper, and then that's that.
Well, I think part of your success and why I enjoyed in here is like you're super intentional about what you're trying to create. You're not trying to be too many things. It's very clear. I notice when someone sets their bag on the bench, you gently suggest,
right,
maybe firmly, that bag should be placed on the provided shelving on the wall.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of, the one thing that all those movies about the future always get wrong is that in futuristic sci-fi movies, no one's carrying anything around. Well, here we are in this century, and people come in here with so many backpacks and bags and stuff. You'd think this was Ellis Island, not just a wine bar, right? And they put them everywhere, and a lot of them are black. And
at least they match, right?
I injured my knee stepping on a black backpack in between, that was tucked, on the floor between tables that I couldn't see. And you see me limp around in here. That's one of the reasons why.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of sterner about it than most. You just can't be stuff on the floor.
I appreciate it.
I'm an old man. I don't want to go.
No, I appreciate it.
I don't want to go down and have a sad story.
I never knew, but now I know.
Yeah.
So you were one of the few when the pandemic roared into town that made a decision, few in the food and beverage industry, that made a decision to shut down, if I have this right, before you had to shut down.
Yeah.
I think it was on March 7th.
Yeah.
You announced to your staff and customers that you were closing, which was a couple of weeks before.
It was 1 week.
1 week before the state shut everything down. What did you see or feel or sense that the rest of us didn't? Because the rest of us expected, we'll be back in 3 weeks.
Yeah. I was nervous about it. I was watching the numbers and reading up on the science of it, and the science on social distancing made a lot of sense. It looked far grimmer to me than it did to most, although not as grim as it ended up actually being. But the week before, I think Inslee shut everything down Sunday, the 15th or 16th. I announced at the beginning of the week, on the 8th, maybe, that we were going to close at the end of the week on Saturday. And we just sold everything out, sold all the food out. We were going to go on a little hiatus. And my staff wasn't happy about it. They were like, really, man, come on. No. But I was like, I'm old, I'm 60, and I was kind of I imagined myself maybe in the crosshairs of this thing. I mean, back then, no one knew what the hell it was.
Your own personal health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, let's just shut it down and we'll come back when it's over. Nothing could have prepared me for it being 14 months closed. But I look like, I make this joke because I don't really feel this way, but I looked like the smartest guy in the room, because I got to Saturday night and we had sold off any kind of perishable product. People had bought a bunch of wine. We were locking the doors for good. And the next day, Inslee said, all restaurants have to close. Mm-hmm. Some of my colleagues in the business who weren't as big of a fraidy cat as me were stuck with a bunch of product. They thought they were still going to be in business. Mm-hmm. A lot of them, kept in business doing to-go food and stuff, but we didn't do any of that. We just went dark.
And you reopened with largely your same team and staff?
The exact same staff.
Wow.
Yeah. I was,
did you expect that?
No, there was no, it was maybe the greatest piece of luck I've ever had. I mean, I really feel fortunate to have everybody come back afterwards. They all went on standby with unemployment, and when we reopened, everybody came back. So we were able to do the thing that almost no other restaurant was able to do. We reopened our same days from pre-COVID, same hours from pre-COVID. And it's been that way ever since.
No easing in.
Yeah, no easing in, no days when I couldn't find people, nothing. We were just back. And it was great. the gratitude I feel for my staff is Huge.
What do you attribute the
I don't know.
good fortune to of them all coming back?
I don't know. You'd have to ask them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fun.
You got a great team.
It's a fun place to work. They're pros. I mean, most of my staff has been with me all 10 years we've been open. And I don't know, they like it. It's fun and the money's good. And the people, the regulars who come here, the people who blow through here are all really high quality guests. I mean, I don't know. It's a good job. It's a good restaurant job.
So the state of the business today, we were talking the other night a little bit. What can you share around sort of how this summer was, how coming out of your reopening in 21 was relative to pre-pandemic days? I suspected when we came back from COVID, I thought, okay, it's probably going to be a little slow. Maybe the numbers, we won't go back to doing 2019 numbers. Maybe it'll be like 2017 numbers. We'll fall back a little bit, but we'll build it back up. I was confident, and we were making money back in 2017, so I could deal with that. And I was totally shocked. And in this instance, I kind of underestimated Seattle. Seattle really came out for us. Our regular clientele really came back hard, and so almost immediately we were doing 2019 numbers from the get. And then it's just been a steady upward trajectory ever since. And a lot of it has to do with, downtown, a lot of downtown restaurants closed. A lot of downtown restaurants are open only truncated hours, particularly that first summer. I feel like we were the only restaurant in the downtown area that was open Monday, Tuesday, and was open until midnight. Summer of 21.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there was just nothing. Everybody else was still trying to get people, find cooks, do things. So most places were open Wednesday through Saturday. And so, that was lucrative for us, and we made a lot of new friends because we were the only game in town.
And this summer?
This summer's been just as good, even a little better. I mean, it feels like, we have our regular clientele, new people coming all the time. I also think that post-COVID, this is just theory, stupid theory. What do they call it? Spitballing a theory, and that is that I think post-COVID, a lot of people like the idea of approaching a night out with a little more provisionally, having to make a reservation and knowing they're on the hook for, a 3 or 4 course dinner seems like kind of a lot to deal with. I mean, maybe for some people it's, it's better because they can plan and do things, but I don't know. We find people have said as much to me that they know they can just come here. And if there's a spot they can pop in, and they know they can pop in for a glass of wine or 3 or 4 glasses of wine and some food with their friends. They could be here for a couple of hours or 15 minutes. And to have that kind of latitude, not a lot of places offer that,
Yeah. Last night I popped through for 25 minutes because a friend was here and got a quick glass of wine in between somewhere else I had to be with my son. And you have that flexibility.
Yeah. That's exactly the role of the wine bar. And, I will say this too. When I opened, I wasn't exactly sure. This is another one of those moments when I sort of underestimated Seattle. I wasn't exactly sure that Seattle was going to get it. Throughout the 90s, places that were called wine bars opened and they were gross and stupid.
A little different.
And I wasn't sure that people were going to understand it unless they'd had some experience in France. And come to find out, the wine bar of this type is a model that has been field tested in the capitals of Europe for centuries. It totally works on a human level. People who have no experience in France come in here and dig it for whatever reason, and they find a way to make use of it. And then this is the point I was going to make about underestimating Seattle. In France, a wine bar like this is really only secondarily about wine. It's primarily a social construct. It's a place you can go with your friends, hang out, have a few things that are going to taste good, and just, be together. And Seattle totally uses this bar that same way.
Completely.
Very rarely do we get, wine eggheads in here, talking all technical and going all crazy about stuff. It's really about people meeting people in a place that they know and trust for good flavors, whatever that may mean. And then they get talking to one another, and it's a social scene. Wine may be primary to me in the space, but it is secondary to everybody else and should be.
That describes my relationship with this place. I mean, there's a lot
good.
of nights I'd rather have an old fashioned than wine, but I come here for just what you said.
Yeah.
The social connections, the vibe, the energy, both with the staff, but also with whoever you might run into here.
Yeah. It's all kinds of weird meetups and greet-ups. It's really fun.
So there's lots of places you can go many times and not feel like a regular. It feels like here you can come here a couple of times, a handful of times, and you start to feel like a regular. Is that something you're intentional about with your team and what you're trying to create here? Or is it just sort of serendipitous and it happens?
Well, it's funny.
I think everybody wants to feel like a regular.
Sure.
And wants that connection, but there's so few places that do it
right.
well.
I think there's never been any talk about it. Because
with your team.
With the team.
Yeah.
But my team, like the median age of the people on my team is like 45 or something. I've got some 30-year-olds, one 20-year-old, and a couple of guys in their 50s, and me, I'm 60. And so those guys that are older, they've been in this business a long time, and they aren't learning to wait tables. They've done this. They're super knowledgeable about wine, but they're also super knowledgeable about the service end of this. Mm-hmm. And making people feel that way. It just comes naturally to them because they've been in this business for so long and worked for great people. Some of the great people I worked for, these other guys have worked for also because we used to work together, right? And so while we've never talked about it, I know they're on the same page as me because we came up together in the same sorts of systems where that was part of the thing. Furthermore, because they've stayed with me for so long and I've been so lucky with that, if you came here in 2014 or 15, Patrick or Derek or I or Heather or Meredith are going to recognize you. Mm-hmm. That group's been here all 10 years, right? And so it's not like a rotating cast of characters where you go into that restaurant that was your favorite, but you don't recognize anybody anymore. That doesn't happen here. You got a bunch of lifers, you got a bunch of people who are here working who, if you do develop a relationship with them, then it's there and it's real and they're not going anywhere. They're not going to be replaced by the next 24-year-old who comes through.
And that certainly seems like a unique asset you have in the food and beverage scene in Seattle, where there's plenty of turnover and churn and people moving around.
Yeah, I'm lucky.
Keeping your team together.
I'm lucky to have these guys. I mean, the oldest members of my staff are experienced enough and professional enough. They could work in any room in the town. Mm-hmm. And that they choose my stupid little place is really, really just warms my heart.
What do you think of for the next 10 years of what you're doing?
I don't know, man. I'm old. The next 10 years, somewhere along the line in the next 10 years, I probably hand it off to one of the younger guys and walk away.
Do you think about trying to do another one of these in another part of Seattle?
No, it's funny you say that. I did. When I first got going, I started keeping a project notebook like I did for this place for a champagne-only bar. Mm-hmm. A little bit smaller than this, more of a jewel box kind of spot.
Was there a place that inspired that?
No, just a
Your
love,
brain.
Just a love of champagne and how much fun it would be. And some of the investment group who helped me get this place up and going in the beginning, were keen to make it happen too. And I keep telling them, I'm like, well, when I pay off the capital investment on this place, at the 5-year mark, maybe we'll talk about it, But I was also, by that point, I was 56, and I was, thinking, really, do I really want to go through the rigmarole of, building out another space and opening another space, and do I want to build an empire, even if it's an empire of two? And the longer I looked into the telescope of that endeavor, mm-hmm. the more I thought, no. I think since I don't have any partners, it's just me. This place is great and I love it and it's workable and containable. I should just leave it alone. I should be the one guy in town who has just one place and
keep
works
doing
it and
really
loves
well.
it and let everybody else, build restaurant corporations if that's what they want to do. But that never really appealed to me.
And you have committed to another 10 years here, so you're not going anywhere with the spot, right?
Yeah, I've committed to, I just signed a new, what do they call it? An extension on the lease. So we're going to be here yeah.
So for people like me who aren't smart on French wine, what's like French wine for dummies, for idiots? Like help us walk in here and maybe feel a little bit more educated on what you're offering and what we should be ordering when.
That's an interesting thing. And we understand that because being a French only wine bar and the French, commonly name their wines after the places they come from, not the grapes they're made of. There are some exceptions, but still, for the most part, that's the way it is. If you don't have some wine knowledge, you can be a little bit at sea when you come in here. But, and this is crucial, everybody on staff here is knowledgeable about it. And none of us are sort of acting the high priest of wine around here. No. Everyone's just, it's very conversational. Everyone's just a guy. And all you have to do is engage with people and say, and this happens nightly, numerous times. Someone will look up there at the board. You can tell by the look on their face that they're game to be here. And they'll be like, I don't know what any of that means. Help me. And I'm like, no problem, man. Let's just talk about it. Let's talk about what kind of things you like, what you want, what you're looking for. And then you can help them find a place to land. And then if they're sitting next to somebody who's having something else, maybe they'll get curious about what they're drinking and then go on their own little journey. And before you know it, it just isn't that hard. The important part is to engage,
What's the type of direction that's helpful for a customer with limited French wine knowledge to be giving to you and your team?
In broad strokes, if you're looking at red wines, let me know if you want something that's light-bodied or medium-bodied or big and full, right? That right there, makes a big difference, right?
And big and full French means something different than big and full other types of wine.
It can. But the wines that they make that are big are as big as stuff that gets made here in Washington or in California, maybe less new oak barrel, but nevertheless, it'll still be big. And with whites, it's like, do you want something that's a little sweet? Do you want something crisp and dry? You want something minerally? Like if you just really simple sort of broad strokes character of the wines you like, then it's easy enough to find. Or if you know a wine you like, that can help us too. If you're like, I'm a guy who likes drinking Pinot Noirs, or I'm a guy who likes drinking Zinfandels. I mean, we don't have that, but we have wines that lean over into some of those directions. It's easy, but always, when we put because it's traditional, we have everything on chalkboards and there's no printed menu, which means, like it or not, you're going to have to engage with someone if you don't understand it all. But that's where I feel like we end up winning, because if you do engage with us, man, we're happy to walk you through it, find a place for you, explain the food to you, and put you at ease so you don't feel like there's a spotlight on you. And then you have a great time in here. And you walk out of here and you go, man, that place was great. If you want to go to a table and you don't want to talk to anybody and you want to just look at a menu and point at it and not engage with anybody, well, you're probably going to walk out of here and not like it here. You're going to feel like it was too off-putting or whatever. But all you got to do is engage.
Yeah, you're creating these opportunities for hospitality.
Right. Exactly. And
no QR codes here.
No QR codes. No, you introduce everybody to the idea of engaging,
relationship,
of
communication,
conversion. The whole thing. It's super good.
How close does this match your inspiration way back when in Paris to the places you were frequenting? What's the same? What's different?
It's pretty much the same. I really can't. I mean, the differences are super granular and they're cultural, but really, I've even had French guys sit at the counter and say, this whole place, if you changed the food menu, if you changed ounces to grams, you could just move this whole place to France. You wouldn't have to change anything, because it's really the attempt to make it as authentic as possible.
You mentioned the food. We haven't talked about the food yet. You do an incredible food program out of this tiny little kitchen in the back here. What's the strategy and approach there? And let's talk about the butter.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Well, we'll do food first and the butter. The butter can finish. The food, again, I mean, like I say, I'm not some sort of genius. My genius is my stubbornness. The food that we do here is a lot like the food that I get in an aggregate of like a dozen different wine bars in Paris. Charcuterie boards, cheese plates, a warm item or two, not full service dinner. It's that kind of stuff. And it's exactly like you get it at these other places. I built the three charcuterie plates, the poissonnière and the two planches, based on things I'd seen before and how could I emulate that, and built them. And, they're the mainstays because they're so true to form. And there's always a big old pat of butter on those things when you're in France. And, I really like this butter from Brittany that comes from the northern part of France. Normandy and Brittany, great dairy in those two areas, no wine. And in Brittany, they make a beautiful butter that they put their sea salt crystals from their sea salt farms there and there. And we make, that goes on every board and is often the favorite thing,
and confused with cheese.
Yeah, that happens a lot. People are like, oh my God, I thought that was cheese. That seems funny to me, but okay. I mean, so clearly a pat of butter, but whatever. It's really delicious. There's no way around it. When I was a younger man, I would, I'd take a brick home once a week and nick my way through it because I love it too. It's delicious. At 60, I don't do that anymore. Yeah. But whatever. It's.
I've sat here at this table right here by myself after 11 and eaten an entire butter and an entire tartare.
Sure.
And just.
That sounds so good.
Been in heaven.
Yeah.
The next day is a little rough, but on the tummy. But
that's
delicious.
Funny.
And the heart.
Yeah. Well, maybe yes, maybe no. I mean, everybody's different.
Where are you eating and drinking when you're not here? I think I know the answer. You're going to say I'm always here because you're often here. But
yeah, I'm definitely a working.
There's a few days you're not.
I'm a working owner.
And where are you eating and drinking in Seattle when you're here?
There are a handful of places that are in like heavy rotation for me, like Le Pichet. My buddies at Le Pichet and Café Campagna, Spinace, Bar del Corso. I mean, I don't know. I absolutely love what Jerry does at Bar del Corso. If I want to gussy myself up, I'll go to the Corson building. If I really want to gussy myself up, I'll get out to Cafe Juanita, but I am here a lot. I mean, this is a place where I'm working a lot. I'm trying to think if there's any place else that's on the.
Those are all good ones.
Yeah, those are good ones.
I like those.
I think once upon a time it was Kadai McCann was in that list. I haven't been to the new one, but.
What do you think it takes to be successful in food and beverage in Seattle today? That might be different than when you started this in 2013.
I would say, well, these are going to sound like two really pie in the sky ideas, but I swear to God, I think they're true. One, you have to work. I think most people, if they've been working in the restaurant business and they want to open their own place like I did, or chefs who've even worked for me wanted to open their own place, or they've always understood that they were going to have to work. they were going to have to tie on an apron,
Be there.
and really slug it out, and that there was going to be a blood tithe of time and energy that was going to be required to get that thing up and running, and probably to forever sustain it. People who are, outside the industry and think it would be fun to have a restaurant, I think they don't ever understand that. They think it's going to be some sort of like throwing a dinner party kind of fun, and they don't really have to be there, and they don't have to work hard. And that's a recipe for disaster. Secondly, and I know there are corporate restaurants that would shoot down this idea because they make good money doing a bunch of things. I feel like you've really got to do something that you love and really believe in. That needs to be sort of the aim of your endeavors, as opposed to the aim of how can I make a bunch of money? What are people into right now? Where's the money? That's the wrong idea. You'll likely miss your target. Chasing trends, trying to please everybody. You'll dilute whatever you're doing. And like I say, there are corporate entities that would be like, shut up, we make millions. But
and they have enough
nevertheless,
scale to weather and pivot.
Yeah, but they're never going to make it onto anybody's favorite place or get whispered about when their friends come to town. We've got to take you to, But I think that's what you have to do. You have to, if you're going to do it, do the thing you love. And all the guys that I came up in this business that really influenced me did it that way. Jim Droman at Pichet, Daisley Gordon at Cafe Campagna, Peter Lewis at the old Campagna upstairs, Bruce Naftali out at Le Gourmand. These are guys who, they had a thing they wanted to do, a specific thing, and they were going to do it. That was going to be their thing. And I think subliminally, psychologically, customers like a place that has a point of view, that has an identity. They're not necessarily looking for a place that wants to be their slave and do whatever they say to get their money. You can feel that, you can sense that, and it's kind of gross.
We want to understand the story, I think, too.
Yeah.
What's the story behind the place and the narrative, right?
Right.
Like how did this come to be? What's the vibe? What are they trying to do?
Exactly.
What's the best part of this for you? Of doing what you're doing and what you've achieved here after 10 years of being in this space? When you show up here on a Thursday, Friday night.
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff I like doing, and I didn't think I was going to. I wasn't hardwired to be a small business owner. In fact, if you'd have asked me back when I was 45 if I wanted to own my own place, I would have said, hell no, man. Are you fucking kidding me? No way. No, thank you. But really my favorite part of it is opening up on a Friday or Saturday night, Wednesday nights, when I'm usually here for service. And just tying on an apron and seeing who's going to come through the door. The place feels great. It's full of all kinds of people. I'm going to meet new people. I'm going to see old friends. I'm going to see sometimes colleagues. I love it. It's, it in a weird sort of way, it is sort of my social life, there's being in here and doing stuff in the daytime when no one's around and doing paperwork and stocking wine and ordering wine and going to tastings and stuff. That's all cool. Well, I like working the job. I wish I could say I was better than that, but I'm not. I really like tying on an apron and working the job. I mean, it's a shame that as I get older, it gets harder and harder to do because I really do dig it. I need to find a way to tap into that sort of weird Pete Carroll energy so I can keep doing this as I get older because
you are getting older and you are doing it. So I think you're succeeding. And you continue to do it well.
In the short term, I am succeeding.
Yeah, the thing I love best about this place, you didn't ask me, but I'll tell you, is there's a level of like consistency. If you know what you're gonna, the wine's gonna be great, the food's gonna be great, the vibe's gonna be great, the service is gonna be great, and then there's all these unknowns of, well, who will I run into, or what will the conversation be, or what will the music be playing, or
right.
and you get that known and unknown experience and this consistency and inconsistency, which are both wonderful in life.
Yeah. It's really, I think that too is really fun to watch. Like recently I had a couple ladies who ended up sitting side by side at the counter, strangers. And they struck up a conversation, as people do. And a couple weeks later, they came in together. They were like, we just went to a show. They went to a show, and they wanted to come in for a glass of wine. And I'm like, what? You're like, yeah, we're buddies now. And I'm like, that's so great that happened. That interaction had legs, and now they're friends. And those kinds of things can happen. And those sorts of things don't often happen in restaurants. They can, but they don't often. And they, in a weird sort of way, they don't often happen in like bars where there's a TV set on and no one's paying attention to one another. In
They're
this
sitting on their
place,
phones.
yeah, in this place, no one's got a computer open. Very few people.
Sometimes
are on
I
their
have a
phones.
computer open.
You
confess, yeah,
you bastard.
Yeah.
But usually, like I say, it's a place where people are in here talking to each other.
Yeah.
And there are times in the early days. There was a Frenchman. What was his name? Francois, believe it or not. He was outside smoking, and I went out to talk to him. And the bar was busy. We just every seat full, and everybody talking. And he punched me in the shoulder. He goes, "Look at it in there. Everybody talking, and everybody just talking together. It's amazing." And I said, "God, it is amazing. Look at them all. They really are. Everyone's just talking. Nobody doing anything else." It was awesome.
And needed now more than ever. I mean, the Surgeon General says we have a loneliness epidemic that's killing us.
Right.
And look at you, a prescription to that in a lot of ways of connecting people. And
that's high praise. Thank you, man.
But you tell that story of the two women that met here and then come back and hang out and go to a show and those
and
types
other
of
buddies.
Types of connections and experiences don't happen in a lot of other places.
Yeah, it's true.
Our life and city and the world. So we need more of that.
I'll say.
And congrats on being able to delivering it for those of us that can kind of.
Yeah, it does my heart. It does my heart good. I don't know if you've ever been in France during like the apéro hour, wandering around Paris between like 4 and 7. Every cafe terrace is full of people. Everyone's meeting friends, doing stuff, rubbing elbows. It's a time of the night, every single night, where this thing happens. It's really social. And Seattle gets a lot of bad press about how sort of cold and sometimes off-putting it can be, and probably earned. I don't know. It's not been my experience, but I also work in a really social business. So I can't say if I know that that's true. But I look around this room and it doesn't feel like a cold place. It feels like a place that has some of that social juice that a city like Paris has, in the right hours.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Seattle wants this. They just don't always know where to get it, where to find it. And there's not as many places, a ton of places that can deliver it in the way you have. We have a couple of standard questions on the podcast.
Okay.
One, your first job where you drew a paycheck.
My first job where I drew a paycheck. Well, it was probably, realistically, it was a dishwashing job in like a chain restaurant in high school, like someplace called like the Country Kitchen. Is that a thing?
Where is that?
I've certainly blocked
Where
that
was high
out.
school?
I went to high school. My adopted father was a rocket scientist, and so he moved the family out to northern Utah to work on the space shuttle rocket boosters. So it was in that town, a little town called Brigham City, Utah. It's not where I'm from, but that's where I spent my 3 of my high school years and worked as a dishwasher. It did not go well. I don't think, maybe I collected 2 full paychecks there before I just tapped out. It was not for me.
That's hard work.
That was hard, man.
Yeah, I think I collected 1 paycheck washing dishes at the Lake McDonald Lodge in Glacier National Park.
Yeah.
In the summer, it was hot as hell in there, and it's hard work.
Oh my God, yeah.
I didn't last.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah. Our second standard question, our final question is, what's your perfect Saturday in Seattle? If you can design it from morning till night.
Okay.
And I asked this question of folks in the industry, and they respond, well, I'm working Saturday, so you can edit it to Sunday.
I'm going to move.
This is how Amy Peck with Monorail Espresso answered it. And Le Caviste was on her itinerary, David.
I love that place. I get a coffee there 3 or 4 times a week at the monorail window there on Pike. That's awesome that she would include us in her perfect Saturday. I would move it at least a little bit. My Saturday begins when we lock the door here after midnight. The best possible Saturday would be that the staff and I working would go over to the Palace Kitchen for a late night. So technically Sunday morning, little staff dinner together, have a couple drinks, we've been doing that. Palace Kitchen's, been a mainstay in most people who work in the service business in this town for the last 30 years. It's a place, and we all love it that they're back. And so that would be the perfect beginning to that Sunday. But then I would, of course, sleep, wake up on Sunday morning, make a pot of stovetop espresso, try and get myself up and running. Then I would go to the Fremont rummage sale thing. See who's in there. I'm a reader, so I go. Sometimes there's little stands of used books. I'll go check that out and stuff. And then keep going down Canal Street to this little wine shop called Imperfetta. Really cool little spot run by Celia Barber. She's really knowledgeable chick. It's a really cool little store. And even though it's a wine shop, she's allowed to do little shorty pours for you. So you can hang out there and chat her up and have a taste of, she'll have 2 or 3 things open and taste a few little things. Then I'll go back home and have a nap, because really napping
it's wonderful.
Is so wonderful.
Yeah.
My God. I mean, I say that now and listeners might think, oh yeah, he's an old man. No, even when I was 25, a nap in the afternoon, absolutely.
Are you a long napper or a short napper?
No, like 30 minutes.
Yeah, same here. It's all I need.
It's the most luxurious thing in the world. If I live to any kind of ripe old age, it'll be because I took naps my whole goddamn life.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's just the best.
No one should stop.
And then in the evening,
5 or 6 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
continue to nap.
The 2-hour nap. No. You only do that kind of thing if you're ill. But, this little cat nap in the mid-afternoon, spectacular. And then the evening would be one of maybe 2 things. Go out to dinner somewhere, to one of those places. Spinace, Pichet, whatever. Or just stay home and read. Sit in my little chair and just read until it feels like I'm the only person up in the whole town.
How many books? Do you have a glass of wine alongside?
No, I never. This is a funny thing about me. I love the image. Like wouldn't mind a picture taken of me with a little glass of wine in my reading chair, but it's to be completely false. I never drink wine alone, and I never drink wine when I'm not in a good mood. Like if I'm happy. Like it was really difficult in the beginning of the whole COVID lockdown because I was super stressed out.
You resisted
full of dread,
drinking.
And I wasn't around anyone.
Yeah.
So it's not like I was going down to the cellar going, well, hell, I'm going to open this Gevrey Chambertin now. There was no motivation to do that. I didn't feel like doing that. It wasn't until it looked like we were starting to get kind of clear of it that I started to think, I can. Glass of wine sounds good, But yeah, no. If I'm home on a Sunday night alone,
good for you. A lot of us didn't resist that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And you read a lot of books.
I did. I read a lot of books.
How many books did you read during the pandemic?
Oh,
I remember you told me once. It was a big number.
I was pretty proud of myself, but also because it shined the light on how weird that time was and how much time everybody had all day long. During that 14 months, I read 104 books.
Yeah.
Which is I usually read 40 to 50 books a year. So it's, double what I would normally, read during a time like that. But meanwhile, people go, ooh, ah, but I went on walks. I watched shows. Like everybody else, did dishes 5 times a day. I did everything everybody else did. Trying to while away those hours. But still, it is kind of a staggering number. I hope never to duplicate it.
No,
even in retirement, I tell people that all the time.
Let's not do that again.
There's only one way to read that many books in a year for me anyway, and that would be to be in prison again, be on house arrest again.
Right.
I don't want that. Yeah. Nobody wants that. And what I really missed most, I love dining out. I just absolutely fucking love dining out. And I remember saying at the end of the pandemic, when this thing's over, I'm going to go out to dinner every fucking night for a year to get it back. And, of course I didn't do that.
Maybe a couple of weeks.
I was too busy. Well, I was too busy with here and my
I'm doing that. I'm still making up for those 2 years.
But, it's one of my favorite things about human life.
How did you make it through emotionally of having the energy of this place and how much it means to you and how often you're here and both the relationship with your staff and your customers and not being able to access that?
Yeah. There are 2 things that were hard.
In addition to having to worry about
maybe
the dollars and cents.
Yeah.
And your own health.
That didn't worry me so much. The 2 things that really that freaked me out, the space itself. I would walk down here to pay my rent once a month. Through this like empty city, fucking completely apocalyptic, no one on the street but me. And I'd pay my rent, I'd walk home, and I would always be so depressed. Sometimes I'd let myself in and look around and lock it back up and leave. And sometimes I would just go. And I would usually walk back home and crawl into bed and sleep for like an hour because I was just sad. And the other hard part was that these guys that work for me, like Derek and Patrick, those 2 guys are 2 of my best friends in the whole world. I see them each about 4 days a week.
Yeah.
And I have for 10 years. And back when we used to work in different restaurants, we'd still see each other 3 or 4 days a week, coming from other restaurants, going to the Palace late night for dinner and whatnot. Well, now they work for me and I get to see them all the time. I didn't see either of them until late in the spring of 2021. We were just, there wasn't even a lot of contact. We weren't having like little Zoom tea parties or anything like that. We all just went to ground, and it was hard not to see my buddies.
You hunkered down with your books.
Yeah.
May we never have to do it again.
May we never have to do it again.
Well, thanks for making time for us. We'll get out of your hair so you can get this place open.
Sure, buddy.
And congrats on
Thank
what
you.
you've
Thanks
created. Your 10 years, and here's to another.
Well, thanks. Thanks
10.
for being interested at all, and I'm honored.
Well, hope you enjoyed my conversation with David, the incomparable David Butler, just a terrific guy who's created a wonderful establishment in downtown Seattle. Congratulations to him on all his success. It's a place that's become very special to me, and I've had so many great memories in there over the last several years, particularly since the reopening. It was one of those spots, one of the few spots in the spring of 2021 where life was back in the neighborhood here in downtown Seattle, and have had a lot of great experiences in there with terrific people. And his team, Laura, Patrick, and Derek, and the rest do just such a great job of creating a very welcoming and warm environment and experience for everyone. So get in there if you've never been, and get back if you haven't been back in some time. I want to close out, as I do each and every episode, with a recommendation of what you just can't miss in downtown Seattle. This could be something that's recently reopened, or that's brand new, or something to come. And in this case, it's the latter. And several months back, the incredible cocktail institution Death and Company, which originally opened a bar on New Year's Eve in 2006-07 in Manhattan's East Village, announced that they would be opening a location in the Seattle area. And I am hearing it is getting close, and that they have a location. And I'm not going to say where it is because I'll get in trouble, and the person who told me this will hit me, I think. But let me just say I'm super excited about the location should it come to fruition. It looks like sometime early next year, potentially the spring. I'm really looking forward to Death and Company planting their flag in Seattle. They've opened a couple locations since their original establishment in the East Village. Their second one in Denver is just terrific. I got there a couple of weeks ago. It's in the ground floor of the Ramble Hotel. They just do an incredible job and have opened in LA and DC and soon in Seattle. So we welcome Death and Company to our great city, and keep your eyes out for their exact location and opening date. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Seattle City Makers, presented by the Downtown Seattle Association, with support from James Cito and production by Spark Creative.